This is Amelía,
This is Satya, and you're listening to
Love,
Sex, and the Hidden Agenda.
Our podcast was created with the sole intention to release toxic shame, illuminate our shadow nature, and expose the mysterious entities that feed off our most precious life force, our sexual energy. To learn more about our life-enhancing courses and transformational retreats, visit knowtheself.com. Let's dive in.
So, hey, Amelia.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So today, I feel like, I know that this has been on your mind and on my mind too. And I feel like, also we're in October and you're in Mexico, and it just seems fitting. I guess we're just kind of tuned in to this time where it's, I think people don't want to talk about, just death and dying in general. But when I stop and think about it, it feels like there's been a lot of, and unrelated to COVID, just like people that I know or people who are very close to me, someone very close to them has died in the last year.
Yeah.
And maybe year and a half. And I know you've had some similar, and even in the school, in the mystery school, we've had some loss.
Yeah, we had 3 this year, and 2 of them were just last month. So, and they're, young people, nothing to do with COVID. One died of a brain aneurysm, Ed back in February, and then Aspasia had breast cancer that, just went so far. And then Dave, he committed suicide.
Yeah. So people we know, people like
young people. Yeah. This is not old age
and then I think, this is coming up to this week for us because I had a scare this week, and I actually ended up in the emergency room, and I had this bad reaction to this medication, and I thought I had a heart attack. I mean, when you wake up in the middle of the night clutching your heart, and then you break out in a sweat, think you're going to vomit, and then you pass out, usually that's, and then the heart stuff didn't stop. So I tend not to go to hospitals, and I don't even have like a history of anxiety or panic or anything, so I was like, what is this, and then I finally pieced it together and looked up the side effects of this medication. But I feel like I have a new lease on life because they did all the tests, angiograms, like EKGs. I mean, man, they rushed me in, and they were doing things like I've never seen anyone so efficient in my life. I mean, wheeling in giant cars, x-raying my heart. I mean, just like, I was like, what is happening? I couldn't believe it. So that was really scary for me. And I know I left you a message. I'm like, well, I think I had a heart attack. I'm going into the emergency room.
Yeah. And I was thinking, no, God, not Satya.
Gosh, no, yeah, exactly.
Not her time, please.
It's just so unbelievable. I don't think we have like a way of processing, and I've always felt that way, just, in our country. I know that. I mean, I don't know, it's just so hard to process sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's why I really felt we needed to talk about it, because nobody ever wants to talk about death. I mean, people don't even want to talk about writing their wills when they're alive. Like, no, everybody's avoiding the death topic. Or when someone died, I know a lot of people just don't know what to say to their family members or the ones closer. I mean, it's just such an awkward, uncomfortable, really difficult transition. And I think what comes with death is just so much confusion and inner conflict. Like, if you're too happy, when you almost feel like, oh, I should be sad right now because someone died. There's that part. There's, how can I move on? There's the debilitating grief that people get trapped in, especially, I know, when the parent loses a child, that's really difficult, or when someone dies, in a tragic way. I think chronic illness or something where someone's sick for a long period of time is a little bit easier to handle, but not always, and I just think everybody deals with death differently. And I don't think we actually know how we handle death until we're face to face with it. And I've lost something like 13 or 14 people now. And it's like, I don't know, somebody said to me the other day, like, God, you're just always dealing with the death. And I said, yeah, I kind of feel like that. And I just feel so close to it. But when I look back, I realize that death has been, dealing with death, dying, and those who've departed has been my biggest teacher. That's what woke me up to who we are as spiritual beings in this human body, right? And it was 2003 when my dad died, and at that like when he passed away, I was so surprised at what I experienced. I guess in my mind, I thought like, oh, when he dies, I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna, mourn his loss, or I don't know how I'm gonna cope or what it's gonna be like. And I thought I should be like crying and distraught. And actually, when his body, when he took his last breath and he released his body, I went into this like ecstatic bliss state that was super confusing for me, because everyone around, there was probably 10 of us in the room with him when he passed, and they all had their heads down and, tears streaming down their face, kind of like what I expected I would be doing. But instead I was like up on his legs, perched onto his legs, like staring at his body, tripping out because I could see this like iridescent form moving through his body, and then it just flew out the back of his head and up into the sky, and these golden packages rained down from the sky into my chest. And I was sort of I remember sitting on his legs and just being like, oh, in this weird transcendental state. And from that moment, everything in my life changed. Like my eyes changed, my experience of life changed, my work in the world changed, everything shifted. And then from that moment, I just kept talking to his spirit, like, where are you? Where'd you go? It just opened the doors to heaven for me, and the story goes on and on and on. But it was just wild to I feel like that was such a gift. And literally these golden gifts came into my chest. And it really felt like a gift. And that year, I think there was something like 7 or 9 deaths. I mean, it was just like every other.
One of your mentors, I remember.
Yeah, my spiritual teacher, he died 2 weeks apart from my father. And when he died also suddenly, he and I only communicated in like broken English and broken Japanese, because neither of us could speak the other's language. And suddenly I was hearing him in English, like direct transmissions in my meditations. And I was like, how is this possible? He's like, oh, when you die, you just have direct mind-to-mind communication. Like I was like, you speak English now? And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. I learned so much from departed souls. Like they've been teaching me like what's on the other side, and it just opened me to all these dimensions that we have. And when and then after that, I started, helping other people who also lost departed loved ones, like connect to them and have conversations. And time again, I realized like, wow, people are really suffering. But then when they make contact with them on the other side, something switches. Like they're able to be at peace. They're able to realize that the soul is still alive. They didn't actually, die or cease to exist. They've just transformed, or they're no longer in the body, but they can still feel them, or they have dreams about them that feel real, or they feel them sometimes with them, or they smell them, or they're out in nature and something so beautiful reminds them of that departed loved one, and they have this sort of communion of souls, and they realize, oh, they're not dead. And I think those moments are what help us evolve, into like what we truly are, and realize that we don't actually cease to exist. We just shift dimensionally.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the different, like for me, I've gone through different phases with, I mean, I've thought about death my whole life. Like I was like consumed for a while in my early 20s, and I was researching Raymond Moody constantly. I mean, it was like 30 years ago, on near-death experiences. He traveled the world. He was the first person to gather, go to emergency rooms around the world and gather stories. And I just, I think just from all of the strict religious upbringing that I had, and then switching and learning about other religions and other philosophies in the West, and then also moving on into the East, it's just constantly been something that, so I wonder, are these experiences, I'm curious because sometimes it's as if the experience with the departed spirit soul happens right then, or maybe on an anniversary of their death, and then I'm not sure about how to, I don't think I've ever tried actually to really contact a soul. I guess maybe I didn't feel the need to, maybe because I had an experience already or something. I mean, actually the only person really close to me that died was my grandmother, and we were very close, and we had communicated, we had talked before she died, like couple of years before, and I said, I really want you to contact me, like whatever you can do, you have to contact me. So we made this pact. She's like, okay. What?
And did she?
She did. So what happened was, by some miracle at that time, I was actually living on the other side of the country, and I just so happened to have bought a plane ticket, and I was already planning on going back to see her, and I had bought this ticket like months before. Well, then I had this strange feeling at work, and I called her, and she sounded very strange. She had this really low, like voice, which is like the voice of pain, and she said to me, I fell, and I think my back is broken, and I'm going into the hospital right now. And she said, I'm asking God to take me if I can't solve this quickly, because I don't want to I'm not going to lay up in a cast for a year. I'm not going to do it. And so I arrived, and she had been in the hospital, got out of the hospital, and she was home on hospice, like right when I got there. And she was already pretty out of it. She was on her way out, but I could tell she was waiting for me. And I got down really close to her, because you have to get really close to dying people, because their senses are so close to themselves. Their hearing kind of starts to leave the physical, their sight, everything kind of starts to get very close to their body. So you have to be very close. And she recognized it. She saw me, and she's, hi, and then, but that was really it. And then it was like me taking care of her for about a week, and other family members were there, and just trying to keep her comfortable. But there came a point, and my daughter was there. Now, this is another thing, some people might not want to let their children be around this, but I was like, this is totally natural. This is like the greatest gift I could give her, and to see us move through this process, right? And so we were staying with her, and after a few days, one morning I woke up, and she started to breathe very heavy. It's a sound like, do you know what they call the death rattle? Well, somebody told me about it. They're like, okay, once the death rattle starts, they have about 12 hours left, and
what's the death rattle? No, I've never heard that.
Well, yeah. So I expected to hear some kind of rattle. I was literally thinking rattle or something, but for her, at least, it was just a very deep breath. It was like, kind of like an ujjayi breath or something that we say in yoga or something.
Yeah. My father had that too, and I knew it was his last breath.
Yeah, it was kind of
His
like
breathing changed right at the end.
Yeah. And so, but for some reason, I didn't associate it with the death rattle. So I thought, okay, I have more than 12 hours because the death rattle hasn't started, but this is getting really intense. And I think I need to, for the first time since I've been here, just kind of leave the house for a couple of hours, have a sense of normalcy for Rowan, and then come back, my daughter. And so we were going to go to the movies. So I get in the shower, and then suddenly I experience like this soul going like kind of diagonally up, a feeling, a sense, like it's hard to describe, but and she was just like, her energy was like just excited and happy, like probably happy as hell to get out of her body. And she said several things to me as her energy kind of flew up. And I was like, wait, what? Did I just make that up? You know, and I'm thinking, did I? Okay, all right. And I'm trying to soak in what she said. And one of the things is basically like, it's so much simpler than we make it. You know, just if you feel something, just do it. Like the physical is like this thick trudging thing, and we make it so hard because it feels so thick here. But the reality is we're still tapped into the ease of things and the knowing, and just, you know, just do it. You know, it was like and that was one of the 3 or 4 things she said. But the next thing I know, literally within like 30 seconds of that, my daughter comes in and says, Mom, get out of the shower. Grandma's taking her last breaths.
Oh.
And it was then that I knew she was already out, because she'd already left. So I was like, okay, then. Wow. So that happened, you know, but I wouldn't say that I've had like ongoing communication. I guess, yeah, it's just like, I feel her sometimes. And then I'll say something to my cousin who is really close to her. And my cousin that day is like wearing something that my grandma gave her. And, you know, just for some reason, I'll feel that around, but I don't know why I just went off on.
No, that's beautiful. I had the chills when you were talking about it. I could feel her. Yeah, for me, it was each death that I've experienced. I mean, my father's death is the only one I was like there when he took his last breath, but there was a puppy I held who took his last breath in my arms. And that was also really special because it was very similar. Like I saw the energy, I saw his last breath, and I saw it fly out. And I was like, this is so trippy. Like nobody ever talks about that.
It's amazing that you experienced it as ecstatic in a way, right? Yeah. Didn't you say that?
It's ecstatic. Both of them were for me, because the freedom I felt from the soul leaving was what was ecstatic, like the awe and the wonder of it. It was like, oh my God, you're free. Oh my God, what a beauty. It's like, to me, it must be what the caterpillar feels when it becomes a butterfly and realizes it can fly, and suddenly it's above the grass and it's like smelling flowers, and it's like only been on the ground and in the mud, and suddenly it's like, wow, that's what it felt like for me witnessing it. And then I was thinking like, oh my, I kind of felt like, you know, when you get addicted to a high or something, I wanted to experience it again, almost like let me, it would be such an honor if somebody else near me might die or something, like if I'm there. And I started realizing it was such a cherished gift for me. And then, you know, a few months after my dad passed away, he was consistently talking to me for 3 months. I couldn't shut him up. Actually, it was becoming really frustrating. Him and my teacher talked to me as well, Yamada-san, but Yamada-san was like in a different frequency band than my father. And I started realizing that there's like different places you go to when you die, which to me also boggled my mind. And so I would ask them to describe where they are, what it's like, who they're with. And so I was learning so much. For example, my dad, he was young. He was in his 30s. And I was like, Dad, you look so young. Like, and before I was born, you know? And he said, yeah, I got to choose my age. I'm 33. That was my favorite year of my life. And he was always wearing this like really cool, like slim fitted suit, which he did wear suits and ties a lot, you know, every day to work. But the way he showed it, what he was wearing as a dead person, or however I was seeing him. It was a different style. It was like a thin tie and a kind of like a zoot suit or something, you know, it's like from the 50s era.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Dad, that's such a cool suit. And it was like a couple buttons were open and the tie was loosened. And he was just like this cool guy, young guy. And that's how he presented himself. And I just thought that was so strange. Like, how I don't know him at that age. So why am I imagining him at that age? Not as like my father who passed. And then I was at the funeral, and some woman I didn't even know, you know, there was like 400 people at his funeral. And this woman walked up to me and she was saying, you know, everybody's saying their condolences to me. And she said, I know your dad's okay, because he came to me last night in a dream and he looked so dashing and so young. And he was wearing this suit. And she explained how he was dressed. And that really struck me, because I was like, yeah, that's how he appears to me too. And she was like, he's okay. Like, I know he talks to me. And I just thought, okay, that's a bit weird, but weird because also he's talking to me. And of course, these are the things nobody talks about. Like, there was no way I was going to tell anybody this. I thought like, okay, this is my special relationship with my father. I'm not going to go around saying I have contact, because I honestly thought like, maybe I'm making this up because I miss him. Like, maybe this is part of the grieving process.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But then I started doing experiments. Like, I would sit in my room and because I could hear him so loudly, and he was telling me things like that I could never make up. He was telling me about his business, about his wife that I didn't even know, things like he was anxious and wanted, he died without a will. So he wanted me to do certain stuff. He's like, you need to take care of this for me and this for me. And I was like, Dad, I don't think anyone's going to believe me that I'm talking to you. And I was like, I actually think maybe I'm going crazy. So can you, like, you need to give me stronger signs. So I had this like mobile bird thing like hanging in my room. And I was like, make that move. Like, let me know that you're really here. Make that move. And suddenly it's spinning like crazy. And I was like, wow, you know, that's amazing. And he said,
you're brave to test like that. Most people will be like, oh no, this isn't even real, so I'm not going to test it. And I don't want to test it and prove it's not real. Right? You're like, I'm going to test this and prove it's not real.
And then when it started moving, I mean, of course, I got so excited, and obviously I was alone, so I didn't have like video proof or something, but I was thinking, oh my God. And then he told me it's very hard to do that, by the way. That took all my energy. And I said, oh, that's so weird. Like, why is that hard for you to do? And he said, we're like wind, like we live amongst you. He could see me all the time. And they're around us in this kind of like, they're in the invisible space, what our invisible space looks like. They're there. But this, I realized later, was kind of like a purgatory in between space, because what was going on over the months that passed, like 2 months in, he started changing his personality, started getting more aggressive with me. Like, he would wake me up when I'm sleeping and try and like drag me across the room. I mean, weird stuff was happening. Like, he wanted me to finish his business. And I did not like it at all. In fact, one time I woke up while hitting send on my computer, and I was like, whoa, how did I get here? What's going on? And I quickly like saw that my email was open, and I had hit the enter button or send. I was clicking send on an email, and I went to the the out box and opened it, and I was like, what was that? And you know what it was? I mean, it was horrible. It was a letter my dad wrote to my sister through me. He was using my body to write this message. And when I read it, I couldn't stop crying and it was so weird. Like, and how do you think my sister felt getting an email from her dead father that's saying like, my beloved lamb or something. I mean, it was weird language, really weird language, nothing that I could say, and I'm not that kind of a person who would just, play some kind of a prank on someone who lost a parent or a loved one, and I quickly wrote her and I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't write that. I woke up, and I explained to her what happened. We never really spoke about it. I think it was just so weird. It just kind of got swept under the rug. But I learned that my father was trapped. Like he was trapped between worlds because my teacher, who had also died, he started saying, you need to do a ritual for your father to help him move.
Whoa.
And I said, I don't know how to do ritual. He's like, well, he told me somebody in your life. No, he told me exactly who. He said, this specific guy, who at the time I was just friends with, this specific guy knows how to do the fire ceremony to clear spirits. And I said, I'm supposed to ask him? Yes, ask him and he's going to do it. And I'm thinking, he doesn't know that fire ceremony thing. And it was Vivek. So I call Vivek and I'm like, okay, this sounds crazy, but he was my only friend that I could share he was the only person I spoke to about all these, things that were happening with my dead dad and my dead teacher. And I told him, and I said, do you happen to know, before I told him what happened, I just said, hey, do you happen to know about a fire ceremony to release dead people or trapped souls? And he was like, oh yeah, I was trained in that as a child, but I've never done it before, but I know what you're talking about. It's called blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you were trained in that?
Oh yeah. My gosh.
And I said, oh my God. And then I told him, okay, so this, spirit on the other side told me to tell you that we need to do this for my dad. And anyway, we performed the ceremony. And it ended up, we invited all my friends who had passed it. I said something like there were 9 deaths that year close to me. So like 4 of them were in my family, or 5 of them. And then I had friends, like my best friend lost her partner of 15 years. And that was really hard. And another friend of mine lost her brother. And so I gathered and my other good friend lost her grandmother. So I gathered all of us who had recently had a death to do this ceremony. And it was a, fire puja done the tantric way that Vivek had learned when he was younger. And actually Vivek asked we went to a guru. He's like, I know a pujari, a tantric priest who does this ceremony. Let's go talk to him. And we went to him and we started talking to him, and we didn't tell him about my visitations with the dead or anything like that. And he just said, no, I can't do that. You're supposed to do that, Vivek. You have the training and this is your initiation and the 2 of you are supposed to do this. It's very clear to me. I won't help you, but I'll remind you that you need the ghee and this and this. And he gave him a few pointers. And so we did the ceremony, and it ended up being like a 3-hour ceremony. We cleared, I think it was something like 1 million souls. There were cows. There were, trapped energy. All of my friends who came, we talked to and cleared the energy between them, their departed loved ones with them. And everybody was in tears at different times. It was a huge initiation for both me and Vivek and for all of us there, but it really opened something. And I realized, wow, this is real, it was so tangible.
Yeah.
And a big initiation into that.
Oh yeah. Gosh. This is fascinating, and I know we have to wrap up here, but it's so fascinating, all those experiences, because different, religions from different parts of the world, they'll touch on things like that. you know, in the Mormon Latter-day Saint religion, like sometimes I have a friend who will tell me like some of the stuff, like there's a lot of stuff they're not supposed to tell you, you know, but I get some secrets, you know, here and there. And that's one of the things that they do. They clear for their ancestors. They help, you know, and the more that you're in touch with your own, you know, energy, and because I wonder, why do I have so many of these experiences? You know, I guess I did have them, actually, now that I think about it, when I was little or younger, but I just would always dismiss them or think that they were bad, and then just block myself from having them in the first place, you know. Like my beloved Ken, his mother passed also in the last year and a half, and on her anniversary we did a ritual, and then, you know, I started feeling her around like pretty strong, and I'm thinking, whoa, like, why is she, you know? And one time I was really having a hard moment, and I remember I was standing in my closet and I just started crying, and I felt her put her hands like on the back right here and just say, just hang on. And it was so like palpable and profound, and I knew, you know, and it's just until you have that kind of experience, you because people will say, how do you know it's real or not? Well, it's pretty obvious.
You only know if you have the experience,
right? And it comes out of nowhere, you know. It just and it's just, you can't explain it. And you know, and just like, you know, having close to death experiences like this, it's, you know, when I tell someone, no, I thought I was gonna die, I thought that, well, like, if unless you've had that experience, you don't, it's very hard to understand, you know. And it seems kind of like, oh, come on, it wasn't that serious, or, you know. So yeah, there has been a lot of this kind of thing around.
It's those kind of experience, whether it's our own close to death experience, or, you know, interacting with the deceased, or watching someone pass over, it really changes us. I know we need to conclude. I think we need to do another episode and talk more on this topic, because I know so many people are dealing with the loss of loved ones right now. And I want you all listening to know that I do have a guidebook to help you connect and honor those who've departed. So if you want to check that out, go to the links in the notes of the show, and you will be able to get access to that. Thanks, Satya.
Thank you.
To learn more about our life-enhancing courses and transformational retreats, visit knowtheself.com.